Chris Lee and Blake Lovell of Southeastern 14 here to talk SEC basketball results from Tuesday, February 14th, Valentine's Day. Full disclosure, it is full-on kiddie basketball tournament time in the Lee household, so it seems like it's been cutting into my time a little bit to watch because my kids have had games. But anyway, we make the best of it. We watch from phones and gyms during timeouts. We follow box scores, and best of all, we got Blake to watch the things a lot of times that I can't. So let's start in order of tip-off last night, Blake. Vanderbilt goes to South Carolina in a game that what I saw of it was not very entertaining. Vanderbilt jumped on Carolina early, got up 20 by half. Carolina made a little bit of a charge late, but I'm not sure ever got within 8. This was a take-care-of-business win for Vanderbilt. Liam Robbins was terrific again. Vandy needed that win at Carolina, which doesn't play as well at home as we have documented, and that's exactly what happened as the Commodores win that one by 11.
Yep. I mean, it's kind of played out as you would have expected. I just think, once again, Vanderbilt's playing as well as anybody outside Alabama right now. So I think you've got to keep that in mind here as we move forward into, these final 5 games. They're a 4-game winning streak. And again, we haven't seen that in 6 years at this point for the Commodores. So, yeah, it was a take care of business. I think that was the best way to put it. To just go in, win the game, come back, get ready for a big showdown now against Auburn on Saturday. And yeah, I mean, this was, what would I say, Liam Robbins show again. And as we said, he's a first team All SEC guy. If he's playing the entire season, even right now, like if you look at just the production, he's a first team All SEC type guy. Like he's just that good. So, one of the better players in the league. Get some guys making shots around him. They're tough to handle, and that's why they're playing the way they are right now. Hit 10 threes this game and only shot 27%. But still, being able to hit some outside shots, whether Robbins' perfection from there, 3 of 3 from beyond the arc. Studi hit 3. I think Thomas hit 2, and a couple other guys chipped in 1. So, yeah, South Carolina's a weird deal, and I guess that's why they're 9-17. We were kind of half joking about them in the power rankings this week. They just play all their games on the road because when they play at home outside the Arkansas game, it hasn't been pretty at times. So nice win for Vanderbilt because it's not a loss, as we always say, and it sets up quite an interesting final 5 games of the season now, which I put out on Twitter, and you would have thought I said Vanderbilt was in the tournament when I put out on Twitter that, hey, just look at their final 5 games. I said they are not on the bubble. I made that very clear in my statement. But you would have thought I said that Vanderbilt's making the tournament at 13-12 or 14-12 and 7-6, and that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying it's at least interesting to think about.
Let me borrow your term for you. You're saying Vanderbilt is putting itself in position to be in position.
Well, now you're stealing the pickleitics term here because Jacob said the exact same thing on Twitter last night. So I'm gonna have to let him know that you're stealing his line. But yes, they are in position to be in position now. No, that's Jacob's line. We're giving him that one now.
Oh, okay.
So,
okay.
I'm just kidding. I
Work.
don't know whose line it is. Another TV show at some point. Whose line it is? I don't know. One of those. But no, they're in position to be in position. They're 14-12, 7-6. If they win out, things get interesting. If they don't win out, not as interesting. So again, the chances theoretically of them winning out are slim. But I'm just saying, I'm not saying they're going to make the tournament. I'm not saying they're going to be in the last 8 out. But right now, if you look ahead, just how they're playing, it's at least an interesting thought when you consider that 4 of their final 5 games are going to improve their resume if they win them. So that's all I'm saying. So.
Yeah, I think they've maybe got one loss to play with, which makes the Auburn game really, really key. I'd say going into the SEC tournament, I have questions about how much that matters after what happened to A&M and Tennessee a year ago, especially once you get into the Saturday, Sunday games. But, yeah, I mean, you wish for Vandy they could go back and do the pre-conference schedule over again, maybe not have that Grambling loss, beat Memphis, beat somebody, because then it gets really interesting at this point. But I mean, I get what you're saying. This team is way off the bubble right now, but you could see a path where Vandy makes it interesting. I don't know that it's going to get any more than interesting. You look at Bart Torvik, and that's not perfect, but you start projecting out wins and have them winning the rest of the games, and I think he's still got them out of the tournament. Now, I don't think that take would hold. I think if Vandy goes 5-0 the rest of the way, which I don't think it's going to, but just for fun here, humorous, I think a 12-6 record at that point, and a 9-game winning streak would I think that would speak louder than whatever a computer spits out. But I don't think any more than one loss. I don't see it. So they got to beat at least 4 out of 5: Auburn, LSU, Florida, Kentucky, Mississippi State. Do that, and Vanderbilt's suddenly got a lot of things going for it. But we've talked about how weird this team is statistically, because I'm just going to read you some numbers from Ken Pom. Okay, this team is 237th nationally in 3-point percentage. It is 245th in 2-point percentage. It is 196th in free throw percentage. Now, knowing those numbers, where do you think that team rates nationally in Ken Pom in adjusted efficiency?
I mean, it's got to be higher than you would think, I suppose.
Well, I would guess, just looking at that maybe that's a 200 team. They're 40. They're 40 in adjusted offensive efficiency. And I still can't wrap my head around it. Now, two of the answers are extra possessions. They're 84th in offensive rebounding and 46th in turnover percentage. I think that one is a big key. I want to dig in a little bit on that in a minute. But still, that the adjusted efficiency is higher than any of those single ranks. It's just it's a strange team to explain how it does what it does offensively. Now, look, if you want the big picture answer, it's Liam Robbins. When Liam Robbins is on the floor, minute per minute, he is as good as anybody in this league, excepting maybe Brandon Miller. And statistically, he might be better. Now, I'm not buying it. I'm just telling you, he's got the number 1 PER, I think, in the league right now. And he's had it for a while, and he continues to get better. But I'm looking at the efficiency numbers last night in league play. Conference-only offense, Vanderbilt is number 1 in turnover percentage. 13.9% of its possessions, it turns the ball over. That is a good bit better than Missouri, which is number 2 at 15.3. And here's where I'm going, okay? There's a kid on that team that I don't know that we have talked about on this podcast. And if we have talked about him, it has been very limited. That's Ezra Mannion, their point guard, who seems like every night gives them 6 to 8 assists and 0 or 1 turnovers recently. Let me give you his last 4 games, all of which they have won. Last night, 15 points, 6 assists, 1 turnover. Florida game, 11 points, 8 assists, no turnovers. Tennessee game, 16 points, 5 assists, 1 turnover. And Ole Miss, 6 points, 7 assists, 1 turnover. That is 3 turnovers against 26 assists in the last 3 games, or last 4 games, all of which Vanderbilt has won.
Yeah, that'll do it. Because I mean, I think efficiency offensively in terms of scoring has been an issue at times, but not turning the ball over is, as the point guard, that matters. And so for him to be able to do that, yeah, I mean, look, he's playing the best streak since he's been there. I mean, I don't think there's any question about that. By at least 5 assists in 4 straight games, with 1 turnover or less in those 4. So yeah, I mean, he's playing the best since he's been there. So that's been a big reason why they've won 4 in a row. And look at the games they've lost and look at the difference in some of those, especially just from an offensive efficiency standpoint. So yeah, I mean, he's played a big role. I mean, we talked about him earlier in the season. We haven't talked about him a lot since then because they hadn't been doing a whole lot. But now that they are, he's a big reason. Yeah.
Okay, we talked about putting yourself in position to be in position. Auburn put itself in much better position for the NCAA tournament last night. Just a walloping of Missouri, 89-56. Auburn moves up from 35 to 27 in the net overnight. Still just 2-6 against quad 1, 6-2 against quad 2. Now, I guess Missouri would be a quad 2 win because it's at home. Let me check that. Yeah, Missouri. Well, I don't know. Missouri right at 50. So I guess that's a quad 1 win. No, because it's not. Top 30 is quad 1 at home, right?
I believe so. Yeah.
Okay. Well, anyway, I'm rambling. Auburn was pretty darn good last night. I feel like for a while we've been saying, hey, this team is better than the results have been lately. I went on a limb, forecast a breakout game against Alabama. That didn't happen. I was just a day late or a game late.
Well, yeah, opponent late too. A little bit of a difference, I think, between Alabama and Missouri.
That as well.
Not to knock Missouri, but there's a difference there. Yeah, I mean, look, we said going in, this was, did we think it was going to be this bad? No, but we also said, look, this is the biggest game of the season for Auburn, and Bruce Pearl said it himself. It's funny, we both kind of said it at the same time. His press conference before or after I looked at it, and he said the same thing. Like, this is our biggest game of the season, and they look like it. Like, they played like it was their biggest game of the season. So give them credit for that, because they came out as the aggressor and they took it right to Missouri. And, that again was a team that had a lot on the line. Not to say Missouri didn't, but Auburn, it did. It felt like must win based on their remaining schedule. And so remember, the net and the computers, those pesky computers, they will reward you for these blowout type wins or blowout losses. And, Missouri's on the other side
Including
of
the
that.
net.
Yeah, because Missouri dropped 6 spots. So, because they got beat by 33. And so, yeah, I mean, that's just the way it works. And, that's what I was saying to someone last night, I think on Twitter. It's, like it or not, it's not just wins and losses. It's how you win and how you lose. And, that's a bad loss for Missouri in the sense of how they lost. But they're still in the top 50 in the net. The more concerning part from Missouri's side, I think, is it's clearly a team when they play against this kind of team, right? Kansas game, we remember that one, how that turned out. Auburn game here on the road. Certainly the Alabama game. We said, maybe you can take that one without Kobe Brown and just kind of throw that to the side. They lost at A&M by 18. So some of these performances in these quad 1 type games have not been great for Missouri. But on the flip side of that, right, they've won some of these too. But it's when they lose, they seem to lose. And, it's just like that's the mixed bag you get sometimes with a team that, as we said, is probably overachieving based on where people thought they would be coming into the season. But certainly you'd like to perform a little bit better, especially in a game like this towards the end of the season. So, for Auburn, like I said, I always hesitate to say anybody's safe at this point because they're not in the SEC. There's still a lot that can happen, but that's a significant win for Auburn because now they're at 18-8. 8-5 in the league. They got to go to Vanderbilt on Saturday. That gets interesting. Like we said, they still got to go to Kentucky, Alabama, play Tennessee at home. But that's just one they had to have. And again, I was more impressed with just how they did it because they were clearly focused. They came out. We talk about taking care of your business. Like they took care of their business. I mean, they're up almost 40 in this game late. And so, yeah, I think that gives you a little more confidence in Auburn now, moving forward, because there were some people had them a 9-10 seed entering that game. That's a significant win to boost kind of just adding to your resume. Like I said, it's it's one that will go in the quad 2 range, but it's still one that gives you something to lean on now after losing 5 of 6, and now you can build off of this with a lot of momentum heading into play one of the hottest teams in the league on Saturday.
Yeah, a couple notes for Auburn. We've talked about Alan Flanagan's emergence. He gets 16 points last night, continuing to be a big part of what they do. And John I. Broome last night, according to SEC Network, his 8th double-double, which I believe they said was maybe second in the league behind Oscar Tshiebwe. Kid's having a pretty good year.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you watched Auburn, you know
Thank you,
that
Captain Obvious.
he's the driving force. Yeah, if you him and Wendell Green, those were the guys. No, I mean, yeah, he's certainly having a good year. We said coming into the season, certainly your expectations have to. I don't. I was hoping people weren't just going to sit back and try to compare him to Walker Kessler or Jabari Smith because I didn't think that was fair because they're different players. But what he's doing is he's giving them exactly what this team needs: a consistent rebounder, a guy who can block shots, and a guy who's pretty consistent scoring wise. And so he's doing all those things. He's making up all that in terms of being able to put those kind of games together. And I mean, like we go back to this game, we were breaking it down. I said, look, the one thing that would concern me here from Missouri is what rebounding. I said this is going to be this could be a big problem in this game, and boy was it. They got out rebounded big time, and I mean Auburn had 8 or 16, I think, offensive rebounds in this one. So that was a big concern, and like we said, if Missouri's not defending well, which is very hit or miss sometimes, you can have a game like this. And so it was, I was half joking on Twitter when I was like, look, here's how you sum up the first half. Auburn had as good of a first half as they could have had. Missouri had as bad of a first half as they could have had. Combine those two together, and that's what you get. And then you can even take that further into the entire game. Like Auburn played the exact game they had to play. Missouri played just a brutal game, not being able to hit shots. They're not going to beat many people hitting 5 of 22 from 3. They got to hit the 3, and we've talked about that. That's why it's so interesting to watch how they hit as many as they did at Tennessee, because that's not been the norm this season. So, yeah, things kind of came back to the middle there, and yeah, huge boost for Auburn.
Yeah, it seems like we were on the same page with a lot of our thoughts on Missouri. Number one, Isaiah Mosley didn't play. Don't know. I mean, God help you if you can figure out when that happens next and what that looks like. But common denominator in Missouri's SEC losses, there have been 5 of them. Working backwards, last night, 5 of 22 on threes. Mississippi State, 6 of 23. Alabama, 3 of 28. Florida, 3 of 18. Texas A&M, 7 of 31. Now, I don't know if Missouri's had a poor shooting night from 3 and won a game in the league yet. I'd have to check on that. But just when you were talking through that, or even before, I was just thinking, it seems like every time they lose an SEC game, it's 3-point shooting is a culprit. And my goodness, in the losses, the stats certainly have backed that up. Anything else on Auburn and Missouri before we go to LSU, Georgia?
Nope.
Okay. My goodness. I felt for LSU last night. Put itself in position to win the game. Georgia couldn't hit foul shots late. Justin Hill, who has played really well lately, we haven't spent a lot of time talking about him, hits a layup for Georgia that essentially wins the game. LSU was right there. I thought Georgia was going to hand it to it. Terry Roberts missed 3 foul shots in a row, in the final 45, 30 seconds that gave LSU a shot to win. LSU actually went ahead with, 15, 20 seconds left, but Hill hits that shot, and Georgia's able to finish it off.
Yep, nice win for Georgia. 16 wins now on the season, plus 10 dating back to last year in the win column. So still got 5 games to go. So I don't think they're getting to 20 wins, but if they did, give Mike White Coach of the Year. I mean, because look, the remaining schedules at Alabama, Arkansas, home against Missouri, home against Florida. It's going to be tough to win, I think, 4 more in that range. But nonetheless, it's still an impressive feat. And don't worry, I've still got the Florida fans on Twitter that are, will find a way to throw a passive aggressive comment towards Mike White, which is fine. But boy, I'm not going to go there.
16 and 10.
I'm really thinking about it, but I'm not going to go there. Look, we talked about this, right? We said that it was a tough position for Mike White to be in at Florida. I'm not going to rehash this too much, but ultimately just wound up not being the right fit for where Florida wanted to be. And as we said, anyone who had to take that job after what Billy Donovan did was going to be unfairly put in a position that you just cannot win unless you're getting to the Final Four consistently, or getting to the Sweet 16 and beyond consistently. And as we know, that's not an easy thing to do. So, we talked about it in the offseason. This just felt like a good fit for Mike White. Maybe Florida wasn't. And I can understand Florida fans' frustration, because we've echoed that frustration over the years and how inconsistent they were. But now you have to accept and appreciate what he's done at Georgia in one season. That program was Vanderbilt levels of bottoming out last year, 6-26, and to kind of turn things around in one season, which again speaks to, I think, the impact you can have with the transfer portal, and also just with a good coach, because I think Mike White's a good coach, and you can argue that all you want, but he still, again, maybe didn't achieve what people want him to achieve at Florida, but the guy can still coach, and I think this has been kind of fun just to watch and see them win some of these games like this, because the Kentucky game, right? You keep waiting for Kentucky to make the big play and beat them, but Georgia finds a way to make the plays there. Well, they find a way to make the plays in this LSU game, an LSU team that just is desperate for anything, even the slight, like just a win. If they win it by a point, it's relief, like exhale. But Georgia finds a way to win that one. Go back to the South Carolina game a couple weeks ago. Didn't play well, but they find a way to win it in overtime. You can go back to all these kind of games, and I just think, again, that's players making plays, but it's also the coaching staff putting them in the position to do that. And I don't think it should go unnoticed how much better this program is right now, and what a better place it's in literally one season than it was a year ago. And again, credit to a lot of guys stepping up, making plays. In this game specifically, like you said, the Hill shot, just, you're looking at it, you're like, how's that? There's no way that thing's going to go in. And it did. And there you have it. For LSU, is kind of a similar story. You had a great game from KJ Williams, but I mean, no one else kind of was able to step up and consistently knock down shots. I think they had some 3-point looks they may hit in other scenarios. They go 7 of 23 though from three. Adam Miller, didn't have a great game shooting it. Turned it over 19 times. It's just hard to win on the road when you turn it over that much. So yeah, streak continues for LSU, and I think finally they're going to have a chance on Saturday. But I say that, and you're talking to the guy who ranked South Carolina ahead of LSU in the power rankings this week, and probably drew some wide eyes. But there's a showdown on Saturday, and boy, LSU needs to get that one, because after that, I don't know. So, yeah, good win for Georgia, and 16 wins now in year one for Mike White.
Some interesting roster trends with playing time. Cario Oquendo had taken on a bigger role in that win over Kentucky. Only played 18 minutes last night. They're bringing Terry Roberts off the bench now, which is kind of interesting. But back to Hill, he really hadn't been a factor this year. He transferred from Longwood, played 2 years there, and he had, let's see, he opens the season with 3 double-digit scoring games. The last one he has is November 27th. Doesn't hit double figures in scoring again till January 11th, and they went over Mississippi State. And then just not much in the scoring column. What was it? 6 straight single-digit scoring games. He has scored double digits the last 4 games now for Georgia, and is becoming much bigger of a factor for them as Mike White is finding some buttons to push. His playing time has gone up, and they played pretty well. They had that brutal loss to A&M back on the 4th, but they lose by 4 to Ole Miss, then, of course, beat Kentucky, beat LSU. Seems like maybe some better ball for Georgia in the last week or two, which they were playing horribly for 3 weeks, has coincided with him finding the floor a little bit more.
Yep. I mean, look, when you're a team like this, we said, they've certainly gotten better, but like there are still, consistency issues, I think, across the board on this team, which, that's why they've been a little up and down and haven't played well, as we said, up until the Kentucky game, really, over the past month. But yeah, I mean, you've got to have different guys stepping up throughout the course of a season because, too, it's like I don't think we talk enough about this, the transfer portal, and guys come into the SEC and, the grind of the SEC, you're not used to that. It's something that can take a little time to get acclimated to, and you can say, well, a non-conference schedule, no, like it's different once you get into the SEC. Like it is. I mean, we talk about it every year. It's probably one of the most physical leagues out there. It's a league where, as we talked about too, it's adjusting to how games are called sometimes can be a challenge for people. And you're not just getting the same type of open looks all the time as you would have had maybe at your previous stop. So that's a big thing. I mean, we say the transferring up, and he comes from Longwood, and it's there can be an adjustment period for guys, but it's just finding that consistency, and he's found that in these past several games. Hill has, and that's not unusual to see guys that maybe it just takes a little longer to click and find your way, because this is such just a physically intensive league. And again, we talk about it, just it's just the grind of playing the type of schedule you're going to play. And yeah, but a big game, a big shot, and puts Georgia in an interesting spot from just a conference standings perspective, because the standings are very fascinating right now, because Alabama's obviously at the top. A&M has got a chance to add a little more cushion if it wins, because remember, let's assume, let's play out this scenario. If Alabama wins, they beat Tennessee. Tennessee drops to 8-5. If A&M beats Arkansas, A&M moves to 11-2. So you talk about some cushion there between teams 1, 2, and everybody else. But Georgia's at 6-7, and I mean, double bye right now at the 4 seed is what, Auburn at 8-5. So I'm not saying Georgia's going to get there, but like those are just the kind of things you look at just with this year in the league, and you're basically one game away from 5th, or you're one game away from, well, I mean 11th, because there's the 3 teams at the bottom, Ole Miss, South Carolina, LSU. They're not, barring just an incredible run, those are your 3 bottom teams in some order. It's just Georgia. It's how do we escape being that number 11, and with a couple of surprising wins, we can jump up as far as 5th or something. It's going to be a wild finish. So.
Ken Palm, as of Wednesday morning, has the final stats or final standings projected as such. Alabama winning the league with a 17-1 mark. A&M alone at 2, 13-5. Tennessee alone at 3, 12-6. Auburn would be the lone team in 4th. This is crazy. I thought we'd have a tie somewhere, but Auburn projected to go 11-7. Those are your 4 projected double buys this morning. I'll pull over to Bart Torvik in just a minute to see if he's got it any differently. And then you've got Kentucky, Missouri, and Florida projected at 10-8. I'm not even going to begin to try to tie break those. And then Vandy, Arkansas, and Mississippi State coming next at 9-9. This is going to be crazy. You're going to have to pull out your hair trying to do these tiebreakers if these hold.
Yeah, and just for reference, for anybody who asks me about tiebreakers right now, I don't do tiebreakers until the end of the season, because they don't matter.
Yes.
Like right now, they don't matter. Like it doesn't matter what the tiebreaker is, because we're not playing the tournament today. So I'm like, unless it's very easy just to say head to head. If it gets more complicated than head to head, don't ask me, because I don't want to go into all those scenarios. Head to head is where you start. If there's no head to head determination on that, then we'll talk once the tournament gets here, because like right now it doesn't matter, because things are going to change so much. So
yeah, Bart Torvik has got Alabama 17-1, A&M second, 13-5, Tennessee at 12-6, Auburn at 11-7. So he's got the same thing. He's then got Missouri, Florida at 10-8. Is that it? I think it is. Then we go Kentucky 9-9, Vandy 9-9, Arkansas, and Mississippi State at 9-9, which I can't remember if I included State in 9-9 on Ken Palm. I guess I did. they're there too. So both computers spitting out a lot the same stuff. Now, people may look at Georgia, and this is the case for Vandy too. Bart Torvik has got Vandy with a 0.7% chance of making the tournament. Georgia, a 0.1% chance. Georgia's problem, that net ranking, 16-10 overall, and again, 6 wins in the league, but it's 121 in the net.
Yeah, Georgia's not making the tournament.
Yeah.
Vanderbilt has, like you said, uphill climb because they're 89 in the net. Winning out, my guess is they get up to. Well, I don't even want to take that guess because
60s.
I think they get to the mid to low 60s. So not impossible, but as we said, we're just playing the what if game because the chances of them winning out are very slim.
Close.
So yeah, but they would be closer than I think people are willing to admit. That's all I'm saying. So
yeah. Parting thoughts.
Nope. Hit that subscribe button. Like, share, all that good stuff. And yeah, we got a lot more on the way here as we continue to look at all the wild and crazy action in the SEC. As we said, biggest game midweek slate of the year, I think, coming up on tonight on Wednesdays. We're recording this with just some big games with important kind of outcomes. Of course, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, Mississippi State, Arkansas, A&M. So, yeah, huge slate. I wish they were all staggered, but they're not. But yeah, so be sure to do that. We may do a basketball live stream. We haven't done one of those. We may do that this week. I'm not going to say exactly when yet, but we have something in mind, I think, to do one of those because things are heating up, as we say. A lot more stuff on the channel: football, baseball, basketball. Did our first women's basketball show that's up. Seems to be some good feedback to that. So you can check all that out there on the channel here. Hit subscribe.
By the way, when you hit the subscribe button, whether that's YouTube or our podcast feed, all that means is it's like a follow button. It doesn't cost you anything, in case you're wondering. There's no obligation there financially or otherwise. But anyway, that does help us
if
get
you want to
noticed.
pay us, you can.
Now we're open to that too. Not dismissing that option, but just letting you know if you were out there watching our videos and scared to hit that subscribe button for that reason. Don't let that be a reason. In any case, we got a ton of stuff coming up. The football content continues to come. We're getting ready for baseball this weekend. Huge opening weekend for college baseball and the SEC. We'll have you covered there, so don't miss that. He is Blake Lovell. I am Chris Lee. We are Southeastern 14. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you again soon.